how we've done this and point out the key features. Turbo or turbine spray systems incorporate three main components: power unit for the turbo spray, air hose, and a spray gun. What we did, and we started to determine, this is basically the strongest element, we decided to use the same powerful motors that we use in our cleaning machines in the ecosystem. So there's a huge plus right there. That's why this is what you should know about turbo or turbine motors. They come in a variety of power levels that are generally referred to by stages. Stages simply refer to the flat fan blade that produces the volume of air that rotates at about 19,000 plus RPM per minute. Let's say per minute per second. Anyway, we are using different motors than every other manufacturer. Amatec has been known as the primary manufacturer of turbo or turbine blower motors. They manufacture for the vacuum cleaner market. They manufacture for the floor cleaning market that sucks up water and the water lift. They used to manufacture in Ohio. They moved their operation to Mexico and China, which is where their motors are coming from. And they do make a decent, good quality motor. But again, they're manufactured for the general marketplace. A few years ago, a new manufacturer started up in the U.S. to manufacture motors specifically with HVLP in mind. And in doing so, he made more rugged motors, larger bearings, stronger seals, and overall, what happened is the motors were even more powerful. We are using those motors. So to start with, every motor that we use is significantly more powerful at the same level as other manufacturers in the marketplace. It's also been our determination from our research and development in this market, in this industry, that a three-stage turbine is as low as you would want to go to get significant and good results with the coatings that you market and sell overall. We stopped in this market making two-stage turbines probably about 10 years ago, especially with the advent of waterborne finishes. And we generally now only offer 3, 4, and 5. We do make a two-stage turbine, but for totally different markets, where the solutions or the products are so low viscosity and thin that the lower powered motor works just fine. Okay, so now we've gotten aside from the basics. Now let's look at a comparison from Apollo premium units to the new Apollo Eco Series, because the question comes up, so how did you make it so much cheaper than the other unit? Okay, first, obviously the motors cost us the same. We went to the case design. We went to, for us, a simpler case to manufacture and assemble. So time-wise, it saved us some money. We went slightly smaller in the case size. That saved a little bit of money. We went to a different filter system. Excellent filter system, but simpler and a little less expensive. We went to alternative spray guns in the premium series. That saved a little bit. And then other simplicities, which also has a marketing benefit. We have always had quick disconnect couplers on the turbine and the spray gun. We went to a screw-on fitting on the turbine. Part of it is marketing, and a minimal part of it is cost. Actually, even when you save $3, in volume, that saves a bit. The other thing that we eliminated from this unit, but we did do an aftermarket on it, which is good for you. We eliminated the 4-foot, the hose length is the same 20 feet. We eliminated the 4-foot flexible extension on the premium unit, but we've made an aftermarket product for, I believe it's $29.95 retail, that the customer can just stick in there, and they have the flexible extension. So we've done that. And as I said, the other two, with a spray gun. So that's how, and the other thing that we had to do internally is we did cut our margins back a little bit in order to meet the price point. So, price point wise, we start with a 3-stage unit, $599, with our bleeder spray gun. We offer 2 alternatives, a bleeder and a non-bleeder gun. I'll go over both with you. It's $50 more with the non-bleeder gun as opposed to the bleeder style gun. Both perform equally, and I'll talk about them in a minute. When you come up to a 4-stage unit, and I will tell you how and when to utilize a 4-stage unit for the customer, everything goes up by $100. And when you go up from a 4-stage to a 5-stage, it jumps by $150. Okay, so you actually are getting a 5-stage turbine under $1,000 for the customer. I mean, there is zero in the entire marketplace as far as that aspect goes. So the only other differences then to the premium unit now are the larger case size and the award-winning 7500 atomizer spray gun that comes with that series. The difference in the gun, it is a non-bleeder gun, similar to this, but it has the option of using a gravity cup as well as a bottom cup. It has a full fan control pattern in the front. That's the basic difference between the two. Just as a side note, I don't think I didn't mention this in my previous talk. Most people don't know this out in the marketplace. When we decided to build our first non-bleeder spray gun, which is the atomizer that goes with the premium series, this was the first gun we designed. We liked it. It was good. It wasn't at that point in time 100% what we wanted. The molds were made. We went back to the drawing boards and came up with the atomizer. We pulled this out of the mothballs to now utilize it again. So if it tells you anything, the performance is exactly the same. It's just a few different design features. The other gun is anodized in nice brown. This is the plain silver. I mean, it's little things like that. But this is an Apollo designed gun, and it was the forerunner of the other gun. As I said, the only other differences, again, are the size of the case, the extension on there, and what's the benefit to the larger case? Okay, this is really the key point in understanding why you would sell this unit to a serious hobbyist and not to an industrial end user. The turbine motors, by the rotational friction, produce warm air. You want to vent and dissipate that warm air as much as practical and possible, which is why we have full vents on all the machines and the oversized filters. By making this case size slightly smaller, we compromise that one aspect with the knowledge that the end user is not going to be using this necessarily in continuous duty and every day. Okay? That is really the cut point. Yesterday we were in Woburn, and I had a customer who came in, and he was looking at this, and I kind of sensed that he was a professional. And I asked, and we discussed it. He said, I'll buy the professional unit. And he bought the 1050 BR, so it's actually the top of the line unit. And you'll get the same thing. But you will also get your middle range customer who wants absolutely the professional and top of the line machine. And as you know, we beautifully sell that whole range of product. I just want you to be aware that performance-wise, your middle range customer is not getting a compromise, they're getting the same performance. Okay. That aside, let's go into the next level. Do a little different sequence because Sheldon's back. I'm joking. I'm going to tell you how to level off who should buy a 3-stage, who should buy a 4-stage, who should buy a 5-stage unit. These are very, very broad guidelines as I use it because it's subjective, it's a judgment call. Generally, in this marketplace, especially if your goal is to sell the excellent general finishes coatings products, are going to be spraying water-based or lacquers or urethane, but primarily water-based products. The Apollo 3-stage unit will handle those products perfectly, or clear coats in general. With solvent finishes, you have a thinning variable if you need it, no issue. Water-based, I would say 90% of the water-based finishes designed for HVLP or this marketplace spray perfectly with this unit. I did find one option, one thing when I was in Woolburn yesterday, and that is it did not spray the pre-capped urethane. As it did it okay, it leveled out pretty good. I didn't like the way it sprayed and atomized. It was not the equipment. It was in the formulation. It's a great product. I'm not talking about the quality of the product. I'm talking about the way it sprayed. It did not atomize the way I would like it to, or at least the way the polyacrylic or the other products do. I'll talk to them. I'll be seeing them soon, and I will discuss it with them. It has to do with it's in the composition of the product. Just, I want you to be aware of that. And I sprayed it with a 4-stage unit, and it still was not. The 5 probably would have been okay. It didn't cut it with the 4, which definitely means it wouldn't do it with the 3, but everything else was fine. Okay, so 3-stage, think of it in terms of clear coats across the board. Someone says to you, or you ask the question, I want to spray pigmented or colored coatings. I generally push them up to a 4-stage at that point. Reason being, once you add pigment to the product, it makes it a little harder to atomize and break up, and you want that added power and pressure to do it. So I'll push them to a 4-stage. Not that you can't do it with a 3. Again, if you have that variable to thin, it'll be fine. But if you're talking about staying within parameters now, 4 is appropriate. Then you get someone who wants to spray the whole gamut, from low viscosity up to higher viscosity, and then you would push them to a 5-stage unit. Now when I say higher viscosity, of course what always comes to mind is latex paint. And it's what I mentioned in my last presentation. Understand latex paint, and then you can understand it in relation to anybody's turbo spray system. Latex paint was never designed to be sprayed with any air atomizing tool. Can you do it? Yes, but I'll tell you where the compromises are. So, the reason being, they do not grind the resins and pigments very fine when they manufacture. And the reason is, they're not expecting anybody to spray it with an air atomizing tool, be it a compressor or HVLP. They're thinking brush, roll, or airless equipment that the contractor would use. Now, what are the variables here? You can spray latex paint with a turbo spray system. However, you really want the most powerful unit to do it. You will have the least compromise of spraying it from straight out of the can to maybe 10% reduction. That will vary by brand to brand and color to color. That you can't pin it down. But it will do it. nicely and successfully. And that 10% is an okay compromise. Once you start thinning latex past 10%, you are compromising the integrity of the coating, and you will lose sheen. So yeah, can you spray it with a 3-stage turbine? Sure I can. I may thin it down 40% and it'll do it beautifully. But you have cut back on the integrity and the sheen. And I like to make the customer aware of that. That was one of the arguments I had. And by the way, I'm very close with the president of Erlex, who we have a totally different philosophy on equipment and product. And I know he's changed it partially. It used to bother me that they would say, use it to spray latex paint. There's no way a 2-stage turbine sprays latex paint appropriately. Okay? Now, I know they've changed their words now to say thin latex paint. They're not telling me how much. But I know with a 2-stage unit, you're going to thin it 50% or more to get any kind of results. So, for what it's worth, just be aware of that. So when the customer asks that question, you'll have a legitimate answer to them. It's not what the equipment was intended for, but yes, you can do it under those parameters. And usually they say, well, I was just thinking, could I? But really what I want it for is. And then you've given them a good answer, and you've eliminated any questions of them saying, hey, I tried to do this and it didn't work. All right, so we've now kind of approached levels. And by the way, all of this information I'm doing on a sheet here that Joe will send to you that'll have all of these various items broken down. Now, the other question that we're constantly asked when we do the woodcraft shows, so what is the difference between Erlex and Apollo? Other than the obvious. Well, obviously, to make it less expensive, they're using a plastic case as opposed to a metal case. They're making a round design other than their larger unit, which basically is the shape of the motor. And that makes it very easy in terms of assembly and design. But the downside to those units, and no one has really analyzed it because we had this issue 30 years ago, which we obviously don't do anymore. The filter in that system is on the bottom of the unit. That is drawing air in when you turn the motor on. You know what that means. That unit is pulling dirt off the floor. It's not a filtered motor. It's what's called a through-flow motor as opposed to what we call a tangential style. You can look them up on the internet. That type of impeller motor, and you'll see. This has a horn that comes off the side of the motor from the blower and then focused through the air hose. A through-flow motor basically just sucks the air straight in through the motor, to the air hose and out. So it's a far less expensive motor as well. They use a 2-stage motor. So how do they compensate for a 2-stage motor? Okay, maybe you've noticed that, number one, the only place you can feed the air hose is in at the top. The reason they do that is so you don't have to, it doesn't bend the air supply. They're building a little bit more pressure. They're compensating for a smaller motor in that way. Plus, they're going with a 10 to 12 foot air hose. Downside to that, warm air generated by the motor, and those units do generate a bit of warm air, will be closer to the head of the gun than where you want it to be, which doesn't always, it can affect certain coatings. You would get premature solvent evaporation with lacquers. Not so much with water-based, but with lacquers. Okay? They use a friction fitting, not a quick disconnect. Now, the problem there is it's fine when it stays connected, but I've had many people tell me that they're spraying and you're not thinking about it, and you go to reach and stretch, and all of a sudden it pops out, affects your work, and then the customer is unhappy. Our goal is to try and make a positive experience with fine atomization and as much of the professional features as one can have. I mean, I'm just trying to give you some sense of where the differences are, because obviously, you know, someone said it's $299, and this is, you know, $599 or $1,000. Why? Well, why is in precision. Finishing is about precision. I didn't mention that in my last talk. We do very high tolerances in all of our spray guns. It's the needle lining up and centering, and how the needle is bored, and, you know, all of the mechanics involved. I know that again from our earlier units because we had those issues 30 years ago. It didn't matter then. When the coatings were blacker, they were thin, they compromised, they burned previous coats, and they flowed out very well. Now we're talking, finishes have come a long way. They're far more involved now, they're more sophisticated now than they were years ago. And that's really, and less parameters. So it's more critical to have precision in the product. One thing you might notice, if you haven't noticed, or now that you will have this spray gun, that this part of the spray gun looks identical to the Erlex gun. They copied the head of this gun. The parts are actually interchangeable. The president of the company was not aware of it. One of his engineers did it, and he did fire that person. And this is how we became good friends. We didn't. I mean, we said, listen, you copied something good. It's a great design, and you got to enjoy it. And, you know, whatever. Anyway, let's talk differences now between bleeder and non-bleeder spray guns. For years, all HVLP were bleeder-style spray guns, which means when you turn the turbine on and your hose is hooked up to the gun, air is coming out of the nozzle, or the air. When you pull the trigger back, you feed fluid into that airflow, you get your atomization, and you finish. Never been an issue. About 10 years ago, maybe a little more, a couple of companies decided, let's make a spray gun that is like a conventional spray gun that worked on an air compressor, where no air comes out of the spray gun until you pull the trigger. We call those non-bleed spray guns. So the first thing they did to market their product was to insult and create an image that bleeder-style spray guns were bad because the air coming out is going to blow dust all over the shop, and they had a whole list of things that it did wrong. Well, for anybody who ever used a bleeder gun, myself included, it was never an issue. It still is. Erlex still makes a bleeder gun. Some companies still do. We offer both. We've offered the bleeder, and we've gone to a non-bleeder style because people want it. Okay? But do understand, there's no difference in performance. There's no overall difference other than personal preference. But there are still people that are now, because they've read it, they're uncomfortable about a bleeder gun. Fine. Use the non-bleeder gun. You've got it. It works perfectly. You can spend $50 more, which is the difference in cost, but you have it, so you can go either way. I love the bleeder gun because it's what I grew up on. But you know, spray with either one, you get exactly the same end result. Overall, I mean, those are the key points. You know, those are the types of questions that customers ask. The other one is you will get. It goes back to which unit to buy. The basic question the customer asks, because they don't understand the technology, they'll say to you, I'm just a hobbyist, I'm a beginner, I don't spray much, so what's your smallest and cheapest unit? And my response to that is, that's not the way you look at HVLP technology. You have to look at it based upon the question that you would ask is, what finishes and coatings are you thinking of using with the product? And you have to elicit that. And then that leads into what we spoke about a few minutes ago. Just going to do water-based clear coats on your wood projects, 3-stage turbine, buy general finishing products. They're great, and you sell more coatings, and you've done your customer service. Again, everybody does things differently. You get back, let's say, into the pigmented coatings. Yes, you're okay with a 3-stage, but my choice would be a 4. And again, carry that to a 5. You want the biggest, most powerful, not worry about anything. You've got it. We do offer a range of nozzles, needles for all of the equipment, plus some nice extras. We have a blow tool that, I apologize for not having it here with me. I left the last one I had in Nashville, and I didn't get more. I'll get you one, and Joe will be sending this out to you. It basically is a tapered nozzle that goes into the quick disconnect, and it's fabulous for blowing surfaces, cleaning dust off of wood, any one of a number of, it's nice, clean, dry air. It's really, really good. Good tool. We've got that. We've got the flexible whip extension, extra cup gaskets, the basic parts that customers want, and they will be in a point-of-sale type of display for you. We're doing that now. So that's all coming. We're going to have a nice window sign, a simple, small window sign, shows that you're an authorized Apollo distributor. Any of the stocking distributors will get that from us. And we're also working on a small point of display product for in-store to show the equipment so people can see what you've got. Okay? So other than that, what I'm going to switch over to now, I'm going to spray for you. Stay right where you are. Don't move. You're absolutely safe and you're fine. All I'm going to do is, I'm just going to move this over to here. Keep that all like new. Just put that on the side. And just so you can see it before, we took this out of the trash. I didn't do anything to it, to that pre-spray. I put one coat of polyacrylic on it before. You could see it. That's my goal. Now, let's talk customer real quick. At least my perception of what you want to give your customer is a finish that you can spray that you can walk away from. Not that you might not want to buff it out or do something, but one where if you didn't want to, you could say, fine, I'm done after you spray it. And you can do it with this equipment. It all is in the atomization and the product, and a little bit of the technique, and that's all there is to it. In other words, when you're brushing a finish, I can make a perfect finish from a brush finish. I'm going to spend how long putting it on, waiting for it to dry, cure out a little bit, and spend how many hours sanding that level, flat, and smooth. And I'll make it perfect on a flat piece of wood. But my thought is, if you're moving into finishing where you get speed, uniformity, and access to finishes that are better sprayed than put on manually, then the goal should be not to have all that labor again. That's been my argument, by the way, with Erlex, is, yeah, I can go a little bit fast, I can get it on a little faster than I did with a brush, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to be sanding to level the finish. And I'm saying, let's walk away from it. Anyway, let me show you the key, obviously the key benefit that we didn't talk about is the practicality of this equipment because it puts on the finish with far less mist in the environment, where you can work in environments that were less than practical previously. I mean, there are tons of other benefits. We don't do much of it in this market. People might. If you needed to do striping and you put down masking tape, the lower impact of the material will give you a sharper and cleaner line. We do that, and we get that in the aircraft in the boating market. They love it, for something like that. Anyway, material is in here. I have about this much in there. I turn the turbine on. Now, usually what I do, let's show you my technique. Whichever gun it is, I close this down all the way. I like to know where I'm starting from. I don't want to remember where I was, because what I'm doing might be different next time around. So just as a starting point, I'll go 1, 2. I did that before. I turn the turbine on. I hold the gun up. I just give a little squirt out in the air to see the pattern and how much fluid. I can, obviously from experience, I can judge, which you'll do it 1 or 2 times and you'll do the same thing. I did that before and found that that was too much. So all I did was, I looked at it, well, I'll do it. You'll see me cut it back a little. That's pretty much what I want. I start a little off the piece. I can hold it square, it doesn't drip. Take a look at it as a wet coat. You saw it as a dry coat before. You can see that? Okay? That's how you want, if I'm starting there wet, I'll guarantee you that's going to be perfect when it's dry. Now some coatings will go on a little bit of a ripple. That's called surface tension. It's okay as long as it holds open long enough and stretches out. If it doesn't and dries with a ripple, that's orange peel. That means I didn't have enough power, or the viscosity was too high. One or the other gets balanced. Since you have maximum power, you have one variable, it's viscosity. That's the other most common question. I love the equipment, I love what it does, I didn't get I got orange peel, or I didn't get a flat, smooth finish. And your response is, clean the material a little bit more.
I just wanted to emphasize a point that was important to me.
Go ahead.
You guys didn't get it. You just poured it straight out of the can.
With the water base, yeah, that's what's nice about, you don't have to play, your customers makes it real easy. You don't have to play with anything, straight out of the can. And the only one I told you I had the issue with was the pre-cap. And if necessary, I mean, obviously, you really should not be reducing a water-based finish. Manufacturers give you a 10% variable, so I'll stay quiet on that one. I know it's not right, but it's recommended and it does work, so we'll leave it alone. That's always the recommendation. That's the easy way out. All right, and it does work. So anyway, that will go and flow out. I'll do one more piece here. No, actually, you know what? I'm not going to spray. You are. I think this is pretty well set. It's going to soak into the MDF. Don't worry about it. What you're doing is looking for technique and speed of action. Leave it set where I have it. I think we're pretty good. Working about 4 inches away. You adjust your speed based upon what you visually see how it's going on. Okay? Come down just a little bit, a little lower. One hand. Ready? Here we go. Go. Yeah, good. Now keep going. You're good. Go ahead. You got it? Go ahead. Perfect. Absolutely correct. That's it. You're good. You're good. That was the idea. Nice, you held it even, your speed was good. On an odd piece like this, you got it pretty good. All I would have done was maybe, when I came to manufacture for a higher end industry, and they're producing them at higher velocity, which creates an issue for this technology, except at a more powerful end. So customers do train your coatings, do try and ascertain what they're using. If you know it and can answer that question, fine. If not, you can call me. I can give you It's the ones that would be in question would be things like M.O. Campbell or Sherwin-Williams that are manufacturing for the higher end cabinet shops. That might be using areas technology or a different technology to spray. They're not considered HPLP in their formulation. All your boutique manufacturers, General Finishes, Crystalac, there's tons of others, they're all manufacturing for this market, so they're not in business making it. Oh.
As a part of the so I can associate polycrylic as a brand name. When you say pigment?
Pigment would be anything with color. No, color like black, red, white, a color of
black.
Yeah, no, any finish can have color.
Okay.
I mean, this could be white. white, this could be black, it could be red, it could be clear, it could be... When you manufacture a coating, just so you know, every coating starts out as clear. And then the formulator or the manufacturer adds pigment.
Does General sell colored polyacrylic? I guess that's
You can answer that better than me. I don't
They
think
sell it black.
They sell it black. White is hard. The best white out there is from a company called Crystalline out of Mountain City, Tennessee.
Would you add like trans tint and stuff like that to that?
You could. People do it. But it's not going to give you a pigmented finish. That will give you a shade. You could do shading and toning with that. Yeah. Which, you know, that's another, that's a whole nother talk that we can have. Here's the issue with doing a tone, with doing what you're talking about. This is technique now. Technique is you get an effect called tiger stripes, which means you see the fan pattern and clear, it looks fine. But when you're spraying a translucent finish, you're getting more color that pushes to the extremes of the fan if you're pushing too much fluid through the spray gun. So the middle is fine, and then you get these darker stripes. Now, this is technique. It has nothing to do with the equipment or the coating. It's in the finesse of the air cap. This is one case where the premium spray gun, the air cap has additional holes around the center here. And the purpose of that is in the automotive market where they spray metallics, where you can get those tiger stripes. It's focusing more air to the center and keeping it away from your skin. Okay? I can do it with this, but it's technique. The other one is it's going to do it for you without it. It'll do it easier. Let's put it that way. The way you do it with this, simply, is smaller nozzle, less fluid, and you'll get less material to the fringe, so you won't get extreme color going to the fringe. That's the way to do it. Okay? That was a good point on that. Like, cover everything? Did I miss anything? I'm only doing this one. I think those are all the points. I'll ask you, are there any questions in just general overall?
Yeah, stainless or aluminum? Yeah.
The gun, the exterior of the gun is aluminum for weight. Every interior fluid part that comes in contact with fluid is not only stainless steel, it's marine grade.
And the can?
The can is aluminum. The compromise on the ecosystem, that was the other point, is, and it's an option, would be a Teflon coated cup. However, if you're utilizing a water-based material or an acrylic material, and you're spraying and you clean the spray gun and the cup at the end of the working day, it is not an issue. If I left it in there extensively, you would get some pigment on the aluminum cup. But if you clean, not every 2 minutes, but at the end of the day, it's not an issue.
Split up simple as spray with
It's
water.
incredibly simple. I didn't cover that in the last. Yeah, that's my famous question. Everybody asks me, how do you clean the spray gun? I always tell people with your hands. So the real answer is, I can actually clean the spray gun, not on a, trying to be quick or fast. Faster than a clean brush. And what do most people do when they get a really brush? They throw it out and buy another one. It's really, I know, some people do, some don't. But basically what I will do is I will go into the washroom when I'm finished. I'll pour this material back into the can. I'll rinse the cup. And in this case, this sink is low, so I have an alternative thing. If it's a high slop sink, what I'll do is I'll turn the gun upside down, open up the flow screw, pull the trigger back, let the water run through, and it comes out the nozzle. I'll do that 2 or 3 times, turn the gun back and forth, look. When it's clear, I know this is a little milky looking. When it looks It's like water all the way. Declare it clean. Want everything dry. The only other part that I might take off, and not every time, I could take out the nozzle and that's the whole spray bag. No odors, no small odors. Okay? That's what I'll do when it's finished. No, I would not take it off. I would just loosen it up. Spring load. Yeah. And just run the water through it. If it was solvent, then I put a little bit of solvent in, shake it up, spray it through. The way you do it, so you're not spraying solvent in the air, you want to take a towel or a rag and you spray it into that. And then you just clean, dry, done. One other question that comes up, I didn't mention this last time either, and that is, what happens if I want to spray solvent base and then water base, then solvent base, and then water base? Neutral solvent in the middle. Here's how it goes. I'm spraying water base. Now I want to spray an oil base or a wax base material. I clean the spray gun, as I told you, with water, dry out, dry. Now, I put a neutral solvent, acetone to a neutral solvent. A little bit of acetone, run it through the gutter. Once I've done that, I take the solvent of where I'm going to spray, run a little bit of acetone through, I've now set the solvent. Reverse with the black center, acetone neutral, water, everything like that. That's the but the better solution to that, and it's money to put that, you buy another gun. Certainly, one gun for color and one for clear, or one gun for solvent, one for water, don't you?
You talk about range one.
Sure. No different than any other product. Viscosity is, again, is an issue. As long as you adjust your viscosity to atomizable viscosity relative to the power of the turbine, it can spray exactly the same way as this. Some people use it as a
Different approach with your eyeball,
yeah,
shoot it, eyeball it.
eyeball